So I'm going to suggest you imagine a terrible situation for a second. Imagine on a Saturday night, you or a loved one is in a car accident. And I'm going to use you as the example. And you fracture your femur, the big bone in your leg, and you're in some pain. Ambulance gets you there, gets you out of the car and in the back of the ambulance. And they take you to the local level one trauma facility, hopefully that you have, that can handle your injuries. And hopefully all you have is a fractured femur. So in the ambulance, they deliver you. And imagine if you've seen The Pit or ER, right? They bring you into a crowded emergency department. It's Saturday night. It's busy. There's people with the flu. There's people with gunshot wounds. There's people having heart attacks. Think about that for a second, right? But they bring you in and they take you into the back and they're taking x-rays and they're looking at you and they say, hey, here's good news. You don't need surgery, but we do need to reduce your fracture. And we need to put you in something that's called traction. Now, if you're a person of a certain age, you've seen traction on TV shows or movies. Sometimes making fun of it. It's where they have that rope and pulley and they pull on it and maybe raise your arm, right? Or lift your back up or lift your leg up, right? Traction. And what they're basically doing is they use traction and opposing forces, or in some cases gravity, to reduce your fracture, to pull it back together. I hope if you're in med device, that's not too difficult to listen to, but that's what they do, right? So imagine you've come into this well-known, renowned, famous hospital and you think, wow, I'm going to a great place. It's a level one trauma. It's blank. And you get there. Now remember, you don't get pulled right back because we got people with gunshot wounds and having a heart attack. So you get in there after, let's say, 45 minutes if you're lucky. And they pull you in. They put you in the room. The resident says this, orthopedic resident, known as a PGY2, who's on call on Saturday night, says, great news. We're going to put you in traction. It will reduce your fracture. It won't take us more than 10 or 15 minutes to do that. You're thinking, wow, that's great because they gave me something for the pain, but my leg still hurts. This is very uncomfortable. I'm very nervous. The sooner we fix my leg, the better I'm going to start to feel. And my guess is my pain's going to be much better. PGY2 says, you bet. We're going to reduce your fracture. You're going to feel better really fast. I know you're in some pain. Bear with us. Traction won't take us very long at all. Now, that might be the biggest lie in healthcare, but that's not what they mean. For us to put you in traction doesn't take long at all. It might take 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But here's where the problem comes up. PGY2 doctor disappears, and you don't see him or her for 90 minutes. And you're thinking, what's going on? I'm a little uncomfortable. I'm in some pain. What is going on? PGY2 comes back in 90 minutes, maybe a little out of breath. Remember, it's Saturday night. Come back and you think, oh, they must have gone and taken care of somebody else, or maybe they forgot about me. And they put you in traction. They hook you up. They bring an extra bed in. This PGY2 comes in with a box with a drill and some kind of weird bed they got to put me on, some kind of big coat hanger pulley thing they're going to use. And they set this thing up, and I'll be darned. Once they get ready to go, it takes about 10 or 15 minutes, right? Not bad. So you feel better. And you start to go, oh, I feel so much better. Thank you so much. That's great. Maybe some of the pain goes away. And if you're like me, you start to go, like Larry David, hey, can I ask you a question? What took so long? Did you guys forget? And the PGY2, in a moment of clarity and total honesty, is like, no, let me explain to you what we have to do to put somebody in traction. It's easy to do. You saw how fast it was. But I had to go up to the 7th floor, and I had to look for the Kirshner bow, this coat hanger looking thing. We only have about 10 of them, and this one's going to follow you where you go. And I had to go upstairs to the 7th floor, couldn't find it. Went to the 8th floor. I think that's where sometimes. Found one out in a room outside nobody was using, the 9th floor. In the meantime, I'd called beds and said, hey, I need that special traction bed. You know, that really expensive traction bed. Yeah. It's Saturday night. I need it. We got somebody down in the ED. And the bed team was like, oh, great. We'll get it there when we can, but we're kind of swamped too. Have you noticed our census is high? So meanwhile, PGY2 says, all right, well, bring it down as soon as you can to the ED. I need that. I got to go get a drill. Hangs up and now has to go get a drill. Now, PGY2 is new a little bit. Still learning where everything is. Goes to the OR. The OR staff says, you don't get the drills here. No. Go to sterile processing. And they say, well, where's that? Like 5 floors down in the basement, next building over. So they go down there. They find it. They're asking around. But it's Saturday night. There's not a ton of people working there. This person is. They get it. They find sterile processing. Sterile processing doesn't want to give it to them. Like, I need it. I need to use this to go put a patient in traction. And they sort of liberate it. They liberate the drill. They don't steal it. They liberate it. And they hustle it all the way back to the emergency department. Hopefully the bed guys have been able to get a bed down yet. But this is going to take 60, 80, 90 minutes. It's a scavenger hunt. And that's what we have to go do to put someone like you in traction. Now, that's typical in level 1 places, that whole process. Now, of course, if you were like me, you would probably say, please tell me you have the pads where you can shock somebody's heart a little bit closer. And that's not a scavenger hunt. But that's what Arbutus Medical solves. So Arbutus Medical is a little cool company out of Canada that you're going to love their story. They've actually solved this. They help you make traction a little bit easier, but that's not really what they do. They get rid of the scavenger hunt. They make this procedure so simple that PGY2, when he comes in and says, you need your femur reduced, and we're going to put you in traction, goes, and I've got the drill, and I've got the kit. All I need is a little bit of lidocaine, and we can get started. And 15 minutes later, that whole process that we screwed around, I'm done. Now, how much more better do you think about the care you got in the emergency department if you can do that? How many more patients were they able to see in that time you just saved them? How much, what do you think of that hospital now? Because that's a strategic initiative that Arbutus Medical helps with. Now, conflict of interest warning, I helped these guys last year hone their value analysis process using, if you're watching on YouTube, what I have on my shoulder, the process to get your products approved through a value analysis committee. But I had them on here because I think they're fascinating. They are building it right now. They have built it and they are building it. And they are now in something like 60, 70, 80 level 1 trauma places. And they have done it through brute strength and recognition of a common problem that all of these places have. Because that story I just described could happen at Shock Trauma in Baltimore, Maryland, or Harbor View in Seattle, or any other of several hundred level 1 trauma facilities across the country every day in the emergency department. I think you're going to love listening to these guys. This is Sutures and Sense. This is our series of Sutures and Sense called How I'm Building This. I'm ripping off Guy Raz. And I think you're going to love the story. With us, we have the CEO and co-founder, Lawrence Buchan, and his VP of Sales and right-hand man, Jeff Borgman. They have become friends of mine. I'm an enormous fan of these guys in this company. It might come across to this. I don't invest in them. I did make a little bit of money when they hired me last year, but that's not why I have them on here. I have them on here because their story should be told, and patients and doctors and health systems need to understand products like this are big solutions to the scavenger hunt that is healthcare in emergency departments for traction and many other things. I hope you like listening to these guys. I sure did. So let me introduce you to Lawrence Buchan and Jeff Borgman of Arbutus Medical. You, me, and Jeff are backyard neighbors. Like I said earlier, I'm a venture capital or I'm in the logging industry. So I'm either I have a massive carbon footprint or I'm clubbing seals or something, whatever it is, right? And I say to you guys, we're having a beer in the backyard. I'm like, hey, so you guys work together. You're in medical device or something. What do you guys do? What is this Arbutus thing that, Jim down the street was saying you guys do, but I don't know what it is. What the heck do you guys do? Lawrence, what the heck do you guys do? What problem do you solve?
I love that. We found a really interesting problem set that hasn't been addressed before. So, specifically, we make procedure kits to streamline minor surgical procedures that happen outside the OR. Today, what that means is we make grab bags that allow a surgeon, when they're in the emergency department, current focus setting for us, to do those procedures faster, save time, improve throughput, ultimately, do better for patients and also the bottom line of their hospitals.
Yeah. What kind of procedures are we talking about? Because honestly, I don't think a lot of people realize that there are procedures done outside of a procedure room or an operating room. And Lawrence, what kind of procedures are we talking about?
We didn't realize as well. So this is sort of a hidden space we've been learning a lot about over the last 5 years or so. The first procedure kit, it's easy to explain with a specific example. The first procedure kit we developed is designed to temporize femur and pelvis fractures. So somebody gets in a bad trauma accident, ends up in the emergency department trauma bay of their level 1 trauma center local to them. Surgeon will get called to assess, and then you develop a treatment plan. And one of the things they look to do for these femur pelvis fractures is place a pin in the patient's leg to temporize that fracture. They'll connect weights to that pin, procedure called skeletal traction. And we discovered, I guess, that surgeons are, and all staff involved in this procedure are really struggling with the workflow for surgery. And I guess it's simply because the ER is not the OR. So they're not outfitted with all of the supplies that they might have and be used to having access to in the OR. Practically speaking, that means the procedure starts with a scavenger hunt. So they have to run to the operating room, get trays. You're talking tray of power tools, a battery, pin tray, Kirschner bow, a whole bunch of additional, supplies to prep the patient, create a sterile field, so on. They might have to call for a specialized bed, so a whole new department in the hospital, and that whole thing takes a lot of time. And so what we've done is develop a workflow solution to address that problem and turn something that could take 45 minutes to many hours into a short, efficient process.
So let's say I have this pelvic. Was it a pelvic femoral? Was that weird, like a pelvofemoral? I don't know what the exact orthopedic term is. But like I got a
fracture. Yeah, pelvic ring fracture, something like that.
Yeah, and they roll me in the back of the ambulance, and the surgeon, usually an orthopedic surgeon, I suspect it's probably, so level 1 place, it's probably like the second or third year who's on call, because I guarantee this isn't happening. It's probably not happening at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. It's usually happening 2 a.m. on Saturday of Christmas or whatever. So they roll me in, and they're like, we got to put Copeland in traction. And then I like that. The scavenger hunt starts, because that's exactly what happens, right? And I see, Jeff, you're smiling. Like, you and I have talked a decent amount about it. So what's that scavenger hunt look like? You roll me in. Assume I'm probably in some pain, right?
Yeah,
and it's the clock starts. And what happens?
Yeah, it's definitely the worst day of your life. The truthful answer is it depends which trauma center you go to. The common denominator is they're all like messy, and the scavenger hunt exists everywhere. But it's just different because these hospitals are set up differently. So I can give you an example. We were trying to figure out if this pain point existed at all of these level 1 trauma centers. Shock trauma was our first hospital that turned us on to this problem, which was so cool.
One of the big daddies, right? One of the big daddies in this business in Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah.
Wild. And so it would probably be good. It ties into our origin story. Maybe Lawrence can talk a bit about that. But when we were at Shock, we realized this problem existed. And they're hyper efficient, right? But there was still a problem there. But we went on a tour to figure out if this problem existed at other level 1 trauma centers. And our next stop was the University Hospital San Antonio. So Lawrence and I flew down there. This is 5 years ago, Lawrence, I think, 4.5. And we got connected to this PA who placed thousands of pins. His name's John Kodosky, and he's just like a fantastic resource for us to this day. And he came down and answered this question that you asked. He walked us through the scavenger hunt. So we started where the patient was being treated. So they were brought in, and then he started the clock. And so what we did was we checked in on the patient. They needed traction, and then we went and found the material. So we walked down to Central Sterile and found a drill. University Hospital San Antonio is massive. So we walked down there. They have like robots that bring things places down. Or it's just wild. So we try and sign out a drill. That's a whole process in and of itself. We find a drill. We bring that back to the patient's bedside. And then we go and find about 20 other items to help with pin care, drapes. And then one of the hardest parts was sourcing the traction frames and bed setups, because with traction, you need a specialized bed frame and a pulley system because you need to hang that weight off the end of the bed. So then we did a scavenger hunt for those items, and they're scattered all throughout the hospital because these patients don't go to one location. They could be anywhere on the floor. So the stuff is very tough for it to come back. So we gather that, bring it back, and then we can start the procedure. So the procedure is quick. It's the pain point in gathering all these items that is the problem. And so he walked us through that from the collector's perspective. But then he's like, remember, the collector is a PGY2. They're just learning how to administer care, and they got to remember where everything is in the hospital, and also work with nurses, Central Sterile to find all this stuff. So it was such a hidden problem. So that's how it's done there. It's done differently at other places, but it's always messy, and it always takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it's funny, having been in a million hospitals, it feels like everyone's unique. All of them have the problem, right? Like they may tackle it slightly differently. They may have it to different degrees, but I would be really surprised that places don't suffer from this, where it's 20 minutes to put them in traction, but an hour and a half to go find everything. You got a PG2 Saturday night, 2 a.m. He or she may not even know where some of those places are. And I remember specifically talking to you guys originally that those Kirsterbow like travel with the patient. So they might be on a different floor, different tower, different wing. And I'm going to guess there's no RFID on them. Like, it's not like you go, hey, hang on, let me pull it up on Find My Phone app. And they're all, no, right? No.
Yeah.
And okay. So
Harborview is a good example of that, actually.
Oh, really?
They walked us through, these patients are going to 7 different floors, this ICU wing and that trauma wing prior to, they'll stay in skeletal traction as a temporizing measure. So they'll be in traction for 3-4 days, maybe until their definitive surgery. So they were taking stuff off on 7 different locations. So somebody that had to go search for a missing post that needs to connect into the bed frame would have to walk 7 floors of this hospital. And what you said in terms of RFID tags, they said they looked at that, but the hospital's so old that the walls didn't facilitate actual accurate tracking of that. And right. It was a real challenge for them. Yeah.
Well, okay. So let's back up then, which is, I think I remember you guys telling me this story and I didn't know it. Right. Because that's one of the cool things about what I do in these podcasts is I learn about things I didn't know. And then I'm way more interesting at backyard parties when I'm talking to you guys. Like, I'm like, you're never going to guess this thing I heard about the other day. But how you said 5 years ago, you ended up at Cali Shock Trauma in Baltimore, Maryland. But I'm assuming, hopefully you weren't there because one of you need to be put in traction. You were there because you were working on something else. So Lawrence, I'll throw it to you and just say, like, what is the origin story of Arbutus Medical? Because it's interesting and it's changed, right? Like, so tell me how it started.
Yeah. Well, I guess first of all, my background is biomedical engineering. So I spent time working with orthopedic surgeons, different types of research. And was lucky to be working with a bunch of orthotrauma surgeons at Vancouver General Hospital, so a Canadian company based in Vancouver. And they were doing some really interesting humanitarian work, actually. They were partnered with a teaching hospital in Kampala, Uganda. And the goal of the collaboration was to build out an orthopedic residency program and, figure out a way to provide more care to all the patients in Uganda that didn't have access to surgical care. And as time went on, they're doing an amazing job building this program that's now really flourished and trained a lot of surgeons who are now, attendings throughout the country in Uganda. They started to see that access to equipment was a major bottleneck. Once a surgeon is hired, maybe it's the first surgeon in a rural part of Uganda, a first orthopedic surgeon that's starting a practice from scratch. They need supplies, and the capital expense for conventional surgical instruments is out of reach for them. If they're looking at having to procure 10, 20, 30, sets of, Stryker System 8 or what have you, that was a major challenge and barrier to care. So these surgeons love the idea of trying to figure out a way to adapt locally available tools. So quite literally, we walked with, our surgeon partners to Home Depot and played around with the 12 volt, battery powered tool line and picked specifically a DeWalt, power screwdriver that, made a lot of sense from a speed, torque, ergonomics perspective. And then where we came in was we developed a system we call drill cover technology. So it's a sterile envelope that goes around that DeWalt drill and a chuck mechanism that we patented to be able to, turn this DeWalt drill into a radically affordable alternative for these surgeons in low resource settings. So that's how it started. And frankly,
It's such a great story. It's such a great story. Like I was telling this story at dinner last week to somebody, and they looked at me like I had 9 heads, and I didn't remember. I knew it was a OUS. I didn't remember where it was for. So it was originally for Uganda, but like this is the mother of invention, right? Like necessity.
100%.
So,
yeah. And so the segue, I guess, between Malago Hospital in Kampala and shock trauma. Originally, frankly, we wanted to just solve this one problem for one hospital. But pretty quickly, it became clear that many hospitals throughout low and middle income countries were struggling with the same lack of access to, surgical power. And so we created the company really with the, that social purpose focus initially, have subsequently now had the product used in 40 countries, and started getting, interest from groups who are now customers like Doctors Without Borders, for example, a lot of, surgeon-led missions with, they would forge partnerships directly with the hospital in a place like Honduras, for example. And eventually, military field teams who said, we also have a need for this type of product in forward deployed, settings where, we're doing surgery in an austere environment. It's important to us that we have access to, packable equipment that we can, easily replace. It's on a low footprint. So one of the Air Force surgeons that worked domestically, I guess, at Shock said, hey, we could use this product in our emergency department for placing traction pins, and that would solve a real problem for us in not having to, borrow power from the OR. And the very first iteration of us, getting into these minor procedures in the emergency department and skeletal traction was they used our original product that had also been used in Uganda. And I think the soundbite that really said we should take a deeper look at this was when the emergency department people said, "Thank goodness you had this solution. The people in the OR will talk to us at the Christmas party now because they're having to borrow drills from the OR anymore." And so he said, "Okay, there must be something here." Yeah.
That sounds like a Dr. Glauckenflecken skit, if you know it. That actually sounds like something he would joke about. Hey, now they'll talk to us at the Christmas party with the ortho bros. Wow, that's so. That was how that's the genesis of all of this. Was you're trying to help surgeons treat orthopedic issues in Uganda in a way that's actually attainable. And you end up in one of the crown jewels of orthopedic trauma in the United States, at least. And they're saying, "Hey, this helps us." It's fascinating. So then, when did you take ideation to actual product creation that you started to be used in places, even if it's just in a pilot or you know, to walk me through, because this is what, 2019, 2020?
Yeah, yeah, we could dive deep into that story of,
Yeah.
you know, really we placed a pretty significant bet on, you know, transitioning and transforming the company from a, you know, a drill cover company focused on global health to this workflow solutions company focused on minor procedures in the emergency department. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting starting point. Very much, you know, as lean startup as you can be from a medical device perspective when we did that. So yeah, and that was Jeff. Jeff led this.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So, Jeff, you get involved at what point?
I came in just as we were talking to shock trauma. Yeah, so when I came on, we hadn't closed that deal yet. So we had traveled, it was myself and Mike Cancilla, who's a co-founder with Lawrence. We traveled to shock trauma to see if there was a pain point and if we could adopt our technology so that they could use it. And so at Shock, we came in and it was like we were thrown right in the fire of skeletal traction. And immediately, I think we saw there was a larger pain point at play. But our current solution that we were using in Uganda helped. So we signed with Shock and we solved the problem of boring OR power. But at that point, like even in those days, I realized, you know, central sterile processing was such a bottleneck to care for them because there isn't like a great line from CSP to the ED. So you still had to reprocess our covers. So that was an ongoing pain point.
Right.
For them.
Right.
But yes, that kind of got us going. And when I remember we were sitting down with some of the folks there. I think it might have been an ED tech, and he turned to me. He's like, "I guarantee you, everybody has this problem." We're like, "All right, well, let's go figure out if everybody has this problem." And so we went on a tour at that point to see if they had the same pain point. We probably hit 10 level 1 trauma centers, and everybody had the same problem. So we were trying to figure out why no one had solved this problem. I think that was one back of our mind.
Right.
And part of the reasoning there, it's a problem that's inherited from resident group to resident group. A lot of the time, you know, you struggle for a year, you pass that problem down to the next group, and it's no longer your problem. And there really was no solution until we tackled it. So, yeah, we had a huge push to go collect data to see if that problem was the same across the states.
And you found that in those 10 places, it pretty much, it was a problem. How was it pretty similar? I would assume it probably sounded the same in each place. By number 8 or 9, you're like, I bet you I can finish their sentences, right? I would assume.
Yeah, it was so cool. We had like a wall of sticky notes where we kind of collected all of their utterances, we called them, and the problems were the same. Like the workflow was different at each center, but it was always the same pain points. Central sterile processing struggled, took way too long to treat patients. All these hospitals are at full capacity, so getting patients out of the ED was of huge importance to them. Folks were getting pulled in on this problem, like nurses were coming to help find bows and little items, so people weren't being utilized as they should be. And overall, like the patient care was suffering too, right? I mean, it's the worst day of your life, and you want to be, you know, you could have complications, but also your leg's not in an anatomical position, and that's very painful. So you know you want to be able to treat these patients. So pain point was the same, but we realized at that point that our product couldn't solve all of the problems. We solved Shock's problem, but you know, for example, I went to I think it was Innova, and they could not put anything else on their central sterile processing team. So even our covers was a big pain point. So at that point, we realized, you know, 1, there's a problem. 2, our product isn't good enough to solve it for the entire market. So we need to do some work there. So then we went and we started building. And that was a fun process and a whole chapter because we got hit by COVID as well in there. And then we couldn't cross the border because we're a Canadian company, right?
Oh, I didn't even. So many questions I have for you, but I'll ask one I did not anticipate on my list of questions to asking you guys. You did something you maybe don't even appreciate it. I'm curious how you got into 10 level 1 trauma facilities, because access to these places for sales professionals, right, is difficult. How'd you guys do it? Like, I know, Jeff, you probably pulled some strings, right? But how'd you get into those places?
Yeah, so we did have some great connections through our global health work, which was just like fantastic. So Lawrence pulled some of those strings, and we set up some meetings, but we were super gritty. Like, I think I messaged every surgeon on LinkedIn in the US at one point. And I think what was going for us was the problem was there, right? So I wasn't selling anything. I was trying to find out if they had a pain point, if we could come talk to them about that pain point. So yeah, folks were willing to speak to us early on, which made a huge difference for us.
There's a lot there. I mean, Jeff says initially we went from shock to 10 level 1 trauma centers over the course of that year during COVID, and people's willingness to engage on Zoom played a role, right? We were able to, I think that initial market study event ended up over 80 facilities. And now, we've talked to probably, over 70% of the market and see the same themes across the board. And what was really neat, I think, like, this is going off on a little bit of a tangent, but we found it to be really interesting. Originally we thought, well, skeletal traction is not a sexy procedure, right? This is simple. You place a pin. It's PGY 1s and 2s. We would hear commonly, well, residence time, it's a rite of passage, right? Like, okay, it's going to be frustrating, but we can live with that. I think we met a number of people early on who explained, I guess, the bigger picture to us. I mean, first of all, their emergency department, administrators that really opened our eyes, the impact that the orthopedic surgeon and consult in the ED can have, positive or negative, on throughput. That was super eye-opening, and how much of a strategic priority ED efficiency was. So even though it's a surgeon and resident wasting their time, they're saying, well, the other side of that coin is this is inefficiency impacting the hospital, and that was a major pain point. The other side of that too was there were a lot of folks, I would consider to be like really just inspiring people who were, in leadership positions. I can think of a handful of orthopedic trauma surgeons that we sat down with that all had similar stories. They had joined a program. Their vision for that program was to make it the best, orthopedic trauma institution in the region, and they felt almost an obligation to do the best they possibly could for the patients coming through that door, to the point where, if your grandma fell down, you would want to take her to, Dr. So-and-so's facility at wherever that was, right? And so they viewed any small problem, small in the sense maybe from the perspective of the scope of their surgical training. Maybe it's a world-class pelvic surgeon. We cannot live with these types of inefficiencies. And I think of one story that you picked up, Jeff, from hospital administrator, talking about death by 1,000 cuts. This is one of those problems where there's so many different issues popping up along that patient's journey, affecting so many different aspects of the hospital, that it was important for them to solve that. And then I think we paired that with one of the advantages of being small. There's many disadvantages to not having a really compelling balance sheet like big ortho, and but we were able to just be fast. So we would have these Zoom calls, and to Jeff's credit and our product development team, I think we caught a lot of surgeons off guard, or residents off guard, that we spoke to early on, where they would tell us some feedback, and a few weeks later we'd just ship a prototype and it would land on their desk, and they would say, I mean, wow, that was quick. So I think our first, when we transformed from just selling these reusable drill covers for global health into our first, limited market release version of the procedure kit, which is a, consumable, one-time use, sterile ready. That was a sub 12-month development cycle, and everything we've launched since then has been also sub 12-month development cycles. And that keeps people engaged in that problem solving journey, which has been really powerful.
Let's take a break for a minute and talk to our sponsor, me. This podcast is brought to you by me, Mark Copeland, the Value Analysis Whisperer. Have you ever tried to get a new product, your new innovative medical device, approved in an ambulatory surgery center or hospital and failed? Have you ever thought about the amount of patients who can't get access to your innovative medical device because you can't get it approved? Have you ever thought about the clinician champions of yours who are frustrated because you and your company can't get your new product approved where they work? Of course you have. We all have had that happen. Here's the difference. Are you ready to make a change and do something about it? If so, go to my website, valueanalysisexpert.com, and click on some time with me, Mark Copeland, the Value Analysis Whisperer. You can do this. I will help. Now, back to our podcast. Yeah, well, they see, like, and if anybody who knows you guys or gets a sense of you guys, it's pretty clear you listen, right? And then you took action. And because you did it so rapidly, I think probably the first time you sent one of those people a prototype, be like, whoa, they're actually paying attention and actually trying to solve this with us. I mean, I worked at a company that was like that, and it's hard to put into words the look on their face when they see somebody's listening to me and trying to help solve this problem. It's almost like pouring like gasoline on it. Like the whole speed accelerates. And I still think like what you're describing is pretty amazing. Like to do all that in that short time period, and shipping them prototypes alone is pretty astounding. Jeff, I'm going to back up and say, okay, we talked about how difficult it's bad for the patient. They're waiting to get traction. PG2's running around the hospital, trying to borrow a drill, trying to find the Kirshner bows, trying to get the bed transport people to come down, trying to get right. And you guys ultimately came to a pretty, you would never describe it as sexy, but I'm going to, because I think it's very simple and incredibly easy to use and eliminates most of what the hassle. It's not the procedure you help with the procedure, but like what you did was eliminate this. I love the scavenger hunt. Like that is just the best way to describe it. Right. So what is this? What is this product? Tell people what the name and what the heck it is if they had one in their hospital.
Yeah, and the scavenger hunt came from one of our customers too, so we borrowed those words. So we took on the whole problem. We knew we would. To improve the procedure, we need to eliminate all the running around. So the end goal was always to build all-in-one kit where you just grab it and you can perform the procedure front to back. So that's what we did. There's two components. We have our drill, which lives at the bedside in the ED. We've modified that drill. And so it works with a specialized pin that comes in the second part of the product, which we call track pack. Mm-hmm. And track pack lives in your Pyxis. At some centers, it lives in the resident call room. But they grab the track pack, they grab our drill, and they have everything they need to perform the procedure from front to back. Like the key components in there, we have a pre-sterilized cover that goes over our drill. We have that specialized thin wire that clicks into our drill. And then we have our own tension bow, which we call quick bow. It pulls tension across that thin wire, and it allows you to hang weight off the end of the bed. The big lightning bolt moment for us was being able to eliminate traction frames, traction beds. And maybe I'll go into a side tangent on a story to kind of explain this. So we were sitting at shock trauma. I was in the operation manager's office, and behind her, she had all these traction frames and weights. And it was weird because it wasn't close to the ED. So I was like, why are you holding this stuff here? And so she told us that Zimmer had discontinued the frames and the weights, and they just bought all new beds that fit these specific posts. So when she loses those, they can't do traction, or she needs to buy all new beds again. So she's like, this has been such a pain point for us. I have to hold on to these because they go missing, they never get returned. So we're racing against the clock. And I'm like, all right, well, this is in our wheelhouse. This is a traction problem. So we thought maybe we could solve it. So she set up a meeting with the docs. And what we learned was the main reason for these frames, it's tough without a picture, but these frames go at the end of the bed. There's a pulley system. So you have the bow attached to the pin. It gets pulled through the pulley, and then you hang it off the end of the bed. Without that pulley system, the bow would rest on the tibia. And that's the main problem. So that's the reason for beds. It's the reason for frames. It's the reason for the pulley system. So when we learn that, we're like, okay, so we just need to eliminate the bow from resting on the tibia. And we have like a really smart group of engineers, our new product development team, which is, I guess, 2 people, but they put their heads together.
They're really smart. Yeah.
Really smart. And they changed the direction of pull. So they pulled from the feet of the bow, which meant when you hang weight off of the end of the bed, the end of the bow, where the handle would be, rises off the tibia. And when we added this technology to our kit, that allowed us to eliminate all the running around. And so, I mean, this was over a 4-year process. We kept building, listening. And now we have a complete solution. So that's the final component of the kit, that bow. Then we pair that with some carabiners and a water bag, actually, that you hang off the end of the bed. And so now you can do traction in 15 minutes versus, sometimes it's taking an hour and a half, 2 hours at some facilities. So yeah. So that, didn't happen overnight, but we just kept adding to the kit. And now I think we've gotten to a place where it's pretty complete.
So you basically have, if I remember correctly from talking to you guys, you basically have everything you need to put me, who they rolled off the ambulance, right, into traction. If that resident grabs one of your drills and your track pack, and some lidocaine. If I see something like that, like you guys had a great tag to it that was, even I could remember that months later, right? I'm sitting there going like, yeah, it was pretty much, you need this, this, and this, and you're ready to roll. And I'm in traction in 15 minutes, and nobody's having to leave. Nobody's having to run away and go find stuff. It's all right there. I love it. Now, let's talk about. By the way, I applaud that you were able to get there and you listened and you responded, and you actually damn near solved the problem. I don't want to get too cocky, but what'd you run into that you didn't anticipate? Lawrence, I'll ask you first. First of all, you didn't even know you were going to be here when you started, right? You're trying to solve problems in Uganda, and you end up fixing people and getting in traction in Baltimore, Maryland, right? So what did you not anticipate that you guys ended up struggling with, that you've worked through? Because I think you are what I would consider to be a successful startup. Knock on wood. We don't want to get cocky, but you've got customers, you've built it, you have, you're doing it, you're building it. What happened that you didn't anticipate? Hurdles. Let's start with some hurdles.
Many. You're right. I think, like, in startup terms, we've traversed many valleys of death without dying yet. So, I guess by definition of not being dead, we're I guess a success. I shouldn't undersell it. To Jeff's credit, like, he's built this thing from zero to, now we're over 80 facilities. Over 50 of those are level 1s. So, it's over 130% growth over the last 3 years. Average year-on-year CAGR. So it's been a fun journey. I think, the thing that we didn't talk about with this listening process and agile development is it still took us, close to 3 years from the minute we made a bet and said, hey, we should take a deeper look at the skeletal traction product, to having, proof of, product market fit, I guess you could refer to it as, with 10 to 15 customers, and an idea of how to run a repeatable sales process. So during that period, we were committed to the process of listening and iterating, and but probably everyone who's been through the startup journey is, originally you budget it's going to take half as long as it really does. And, so there's many periods where we had to trust that we were, and really infer from the feedback we were getting from our customers that we were on the right track, that there was, business at the end of this. But I'm sure that there are many, many more stories of, those periods where there isn't, right? And you can't continue to get to that next financing again and again. So
right.
We've been able to get to this position, and there were some challenges there. Jeff could probably speak to many of the sales challenges, we encountered. I mean, the one that comes to mind for me, I think, is, originally we thought we were just a pure orthopedic surgery company. We were solving a problem for surgeons. And I think we've really come to realize that a big part of the economic value that we unlock is, and the strategic priority that we really hit on, the value analysis committees care about, is that efficiency and throughput in the emergency department.
Yeah.
And also, related to that, not burdening other departments, unnecessarily, like not withdrawing a whole bunch of inventory from the OR where it might be needed and could lead to a delay. Not overburdening CSP, pulling a tray that has 50 instruments in it just to use one and then send everything back downstairs for cleaning again. Not grabbing, to Jeff's point, like this department that needs to wheel over specialized beds just so simply they can rig up this apparatus to lift a Kirschner bow off of patients. To be like that whole chain wasn't immediately apparent to us. So we've had to adapt that sales process. And that's also come from listening, right? I think, our champions helped us understand how to tell this story, and some of the great reps we've worked with along the way too.
Well, I think I also, before I ask Jeff this similar question, I think, again, you guys, one of your strengths is you listen. You don't you think you have an answer, but you don't presume you're right. And I think that's why you could learn that, I didn't realize this really can cripple sterile processing, or this can really slow transportation for patients who have nothing to do with the OR or the ED, because we're pulling the bed transport teams down for us, right? It's sort of our emergency just became everybody else's. And I think that's a lot of times all those departments are connected. And when you pull on one, you sort of yank them your direction, and it affects there's a big ripple effect. And I probably didn't appreciate it till I talked to you guys, frankly, as much. I never thought of it affecting all those places till I was talking to you guys. So Jeff, Lawrence wants to give you all the credit, but sleepless nights, you've had several, right? At points. Give me a couple of the ones what was keeping you up at night during this process?
Yeah, I think
waiting for cases. Jeff stayed up there's a literal answer and a figurative startup answer to this. So yeah.
I've stayed up a few nights waiting for cases for sure, but those were that was fun. I think honestly the toughest part, I'd say, has been figuring back out. So I can kind of expand on what Lawrence is saying. So we had been successful a few times, rolling like the classic approach, rolling with an ortho champion, treating this like an ortho product, having an awesome ortho champion, stomp their feet, get in the ear of VAC, present it, and get it through. That has worked a few times, but it's more of the exception. And I think the hardest part is actually telling our story in the room, in that value analysis room, when we aren't there and we're delivering it through a third person, because our story touches so many different departments, right? Like, so we have ortho, we have the ED, you have ED nursing, you have bed control, you have central sterile processing, you have ortho techs, then you have the whole financial side. And so in an ideal process, you're speaking to all of these different departments, collecting feedback, and then packaging that up in a nice way to whoever is presenting our value. And like, that sounds like an easy thing to do, but these folks are so busy. And someone needs to step outside of their world and take that story on. So I think that's been probably the biggest challenge. And what we did early on, Mark, is we went too soon. Like we'd have a half a package and we go to VAC, get shut down because they didn't understand it. So we've learned to slow down and make sure we really have these multiple touch points until we feel strong, we can go and put our best foot forward. But that sleepless nights, that's probably the biggest reason there for me, I'd say. And we're still learning and getting better.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, and you're always going to be getting better anyway. No matter what you get good at, you're going to keep trying to get better at. It's funny. I was thinking about you guys last week when I knew I was going to be talking to you, and I was actually, these weird things come into my head. I was thinking your best sales aid might be like a documentary on somebody coming in for traction, and they're like split screening, and they're going like, if you think about it, like I can actually see what you're describing, because I think you guys are really good at describing it, because you've listened to all these people, you've stolen their terms, you use scavenger hunt. Everybody knows what that is, right? And you're like, yeah, I took that from some surgeon that I talked to, or somebody said it to you. But like, you could have like a 15-minute documentary and just say, if I could just get him to sit down for 15 minutes, we're going to get approved everywhere, because it makes complete sense. It's just that the message isn't always getting to everybody. And frankly, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, or it doesn't matter who you are, we all think like, hey, I like this. This solves my problem. And when somebody's like, well, why should we pay for it? You go, well, I don't know. Did I mention it solves my problem? They're like, yeah, we run a health system. We're not in the business of solving your problems. We're in the business of running our facility. And you guys have that. I could tell from talking to you, whoever were the right people, probably when you got approved, it's because the right people were hearing this or knew it or saw it. And when you didn't, it was because it's not because you didn't have a good sales pitch or presentation or good product, just the opposite. It's so that's interesting that was a keeps you up at night, because yeah, it definitely can slow your growth. I mean, global pandemics alone can slow your growth, but so can what you described. And this is not, we didn't come on here saying, hey, let's talk about VAC, because that's what I talk about. I'm interested in hearing what you guys want to talk about and the issues you faced. So here's a weird question I like to ask people in these, and I'll ask Jeff first, and then Lawrence, I'll let you have it. So Jeff, the medical device tooth fairy slips something, whatever it is you want, underneath your pillow. You wake up the next day like, oh my gosh, hey, look what the medical device tooth fairy left for me. What is it? Is it investment? Is it more reps? Is it Lawrence getting something made on the drill that makes it even easier? Like, what is it that you wish somebody just dropped underneath your pillow and you woke up? If you have something in your head, what would it be?
Yeah, I'll let Lawrence think about investment. I think like where we're at, we've proved we can sell this product. We have a repeatable process. Yeah. We've proven that it works year on year, even through the residency turnover point. We built like a wicked team to support 1099 reps. And I think if I had one wish, it's probably raising awareness. Like we have a lot of trauma centers out there that, we call them untapped because we just haven't found access yet. And I think there's probably a ton of great sales reps sitting there where the pain point is under their nose, right? Like the orthopedic residents are struggling, but it's something that there isn't a solution that is like in their face. So I think I would have a link to more reps at these places so we can kind of get in, see if there's a pain point. Yeah.
Have a Super Bowl commercial, right? Like it'd be nice if they put a Super Bowl commercial under your pillow, because then everybody will know about it.
Yeah. No, we're talking, that's investment probably talk for.
Yeah.
I think that's
we said it's the med device tooth fairy. So
that's true.
Lawrence, same thing. Santa Claus, med device Santa Claus drops something down your chimney under your Christmas tree, you wake up, or whatever it is, what would it be? Would it be the same thing, or would it be something different?
You know what, the first thing that popped into my mind is not a thing, but I thought, I just really would love 24 hours, twice in a day right now. Just extra, more time to charge ahead. Like, I think one of the things, I'll take a long version of explaining that, is like one of the other side of the coin with, having to tell a really a cross-departmental story with, between ortho and the emergency department, specifically, is we've also realized that that's what we're here to do. Like, we're a very purpose-driven company, and by Arbutus being a link and helping to educate, the ED folks about these procedures that surgeons have to do in the ED, and those inefficiencies, and vice versa, a surgeon and an ortho rep about the value of ED efficiency. There's a huge opportunity there for us to build a category. I think one of the things that we haven't talked about is that, we focused a lot on skeletal traction, but over the last couple of years, we've been asking, the same facilities, what other procedures, surgical procedures, are you doing that you struggle with? We've identified a list right now, like an initial hit list of eight indications, essentially formulaic pain point, right? So we have this opportunity to build something, I think, really big, and like probably most startups in that scenario, we're still a small team. 17 people have been really efficient to this date. But there's a really exciting opportunity ahead of us to grow, and not enough time in the day, I think, to tackle it. So I don't have a silver bullet right now, but we are, on the cusp of, an exciting growth financing, and sort of the third arc of the company. Like, if arc 1 was global health, arc 2 was really revealing, or I like to use the archaeologist analogy. Like, all of this stuff was there, and we're chipping away to uncover what's underneath. The story that exists, or the need that exists. We've done the archaeological dig, and now we're going to be in a build phase to build this category of products, and more commercial presence. So a mix of things in there. But I think right now I would just like to accelerate, get 10 years into the future. And at the end of the day, I think we do it because we want to improve patient care. So, there's some just amazing stories also that come from providers about how we've, helped improve their life in a small way. So I would just like to accelerate this process more than anything. But I guess that impatience, is probably natural for most folks in
it's also
in this seat and in this space. Yeah.
It probably drives you crazy, but it also makes you really good. I mean, that's what gets you to get prototypes back to these folks, just as an example, so fast, because you have a sense of urgency, and you're trying to build one in everybody else, and you're also building credibility, which is, I still think there's like, you have solved a problem. Like, there's awareness, which is Jeff's Super Bowl commercial, and like, then there's the other part of credibility, and you guys have that credibility. How do we get that credibility out to the people who should hear about it? And it could be your reps, could be people who listen to this, or clinicians, right? And you definitely come across that way. And it's part of the reason I was excited to have you guys on here, is because I hope in some small way this helps that person who gets brought in at 2 a.m. in the back of an ambulance, right? And they're going through the worst day of their life, I think Jeff said, or Lawrence, you might have. And you just made it a lot better. It's still bad, but you just made it a lot better. And that's the whole idea behind what innovative medical device companies do. And I applaud you for it. And I'm told by my wife, I don't do sincere well. I'm actually being sincere. I applaud what you guys do. So how do people, maybe they have a Super Bowl commercial spot waiting for you, or maybe they have a time machine, Lawrence, for you, and they want to get in touch with you. How do people find you guys in Arbutus Medical? Just give your website and where they can find you guys here, and I'll let you guys go.
think the two best places, www.arbutusmedical.com, and find us on LinkedIn. Engage. We're always we're hiring right now for talented, aspirational salespeople to solve an unmet need, and Jeff's constantly looking to engage great, 1099 reps in the field to help us spread this message and, educate more residents on the procedures we're focused on. So those are the two ways. And then just, come connect with us. We'll also be at OTA and ASSH recording early October here this fall, and, many more meetings in the spring too. So come find us, and we'd love to have a conversation.
Will do. I love it. Jeff, Lawrence, you guys are, you know how much I like you guys. I appreciate you coming on my podcast. And if we can help, we will. So thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
So how great were Jeff and Lawrence? How about their humility? How about the work they did up front to understand that there was a problem, and did others have it before they just tried to solve it for one place? I mean, to start at a place like Shock Trauma, which is world renowned for what they do, and they're now doing it in several dozen level 1 trauma places. And you heard them. These guys aren't pounding their chest. They don't act like they know everything. They actually just listened and attacked, but they made sure there was a market for it. So what I loved is when they said they were sort of thrown in the fire and Uganda helped them. Think about that. Things they learned in Uganda make Shock Trauma a better place. It's an astounding story. I'm thrilled to have these guys on. I love when these guys said, we went to a level 1 trauma centers, and they didn't say we were trying to sell our idea. We said, do they have the same problem? And you can tell they all do, but these guys weren't sure. So they visited them. They pulled strings. They asked for favors, but they found out the problem existed everywhere, what it sounded like, what it smelled like, the story I told in the beginning. That's what they heard everywhere. Every place did the scavenger hunt a little bit differently, but there's a scavenger hunt, and these guys have eliminated it. I hope you never fracture your femur. I hope I never fracture my femur. But if I do, I hope Arbutus Medical has been on the shelf in their facility, and we can get that traction thing done fast. I am Mark Copeland. This has been Sutures and Sense, how I'm building this with Arbutus Medical. If you want to learn more about Arbutus Medical, go to their website, arbutusmedical.com, or reach out to Jeff or Lawrence on their LinkedIn pages, and I promise you they will get back to you. And even if you're not sure, just email me and I'll get you in touch with them, because what they do improves patient care, improves emergency departments, and actually helps hospitals and health systems in a way you have to understand. So thanks, everybody. Talk to you next time on Sutures and Sense, how I'm building this.